by our partners, Solar Dynamics, the most efficient energy systems.
A pleasant good night to you. Welcome to The People's Business. I'm your host, Shane Seeley. And tonight we are doing part 2 on renewable energy, but this time we are focusing on the budget incentives. Of course, last week's budget was packed with some incentives for the renewable energy sector, and we have the experts to talk about just how they will benefit Barbadians, not only on the renewable side of things, electric cars, and further afield. So tonight we have renewable energy advocate, the public relations officer of the Barbados Renewable Energy Association, Aidan Rogers, back with us, the co-founder of Megapower Limited, Simon Richards, and the principal of the SJPI, Ian Drakes. So we have an action-packed lineup for you. It's all about renewable energy and the benefits for Barbados as we focus on those budget incentives. We'll take a break here and we'll be right back. Welcome back to The People's Business as we speak about renewable energy, the budget incentives. And last Monday in the budget, we would have heard the Prime Minister, Mia Moore-Motley, unveil what are a raft of measures which will encourage Barbadians to get involved in renewable energy as far as households are concerned, and not only that, in terms of getting into the electric vehicle market. So there are a number of incentives, and I really want to go through them with you right here on The People's Business. One of them included the excise and VAT holiday on electric vehicles for 24 months. So that's 2 years, and that commences from April 1st this year. Also, there will be a realignment of the rates for electric vehicles and other alternate fuel vehicles in terms of the customs tariffs. So those tariffs have been significantly lowered as well. Also from April 1st, the loan limit for public servants who are purchasing electric vehicles has been increased as well to $100,000. So I think that will encourage anyone working in the public service, in the civil service, to want to purchase an electric vehicle. $100,000 you're capped at. You can get a very good vehicle that you don't have to put gasoline or diesel in, and we know the prices people are paying at the pump for those now, even with the reduction, the recent reduction in taxes on fuel. And also on the household side, effective April 1st, a waiver on import duty and VAT to be granted for a 2-year period as well on the purchase and installation of generators at the residential level, at residential homes. So let's get into this. How will this benefit you at home? How will this encourage you? Does this encourage you to want to be a part of this renewable energy movement as we try to move to 100% renewables by 2030? Remember, you can call us and ask your questions as well to our panel here tonight. Aidan Rogers, of course, Simon Richards, and Ian Drakes. Ian Drakes being the principal of the SJPI. So let's put this into perspective first, Aidan. When you heard these measures unveiled by the Prime Minister, what were you thinking? Were they enough, Are you satisfied with what you're seeing in terms of these incentives for pushing renewable energy in the vehicle market and at the household level?
Well, definitely, Shane, and good night, Barbados. These measures are measures that we in the Barbados Renewable Energy Association have been lobbying for some time. In fact, way back in 2016, we would have made formal representations to the then government recommending possibly the imposition of a 5 year tax holiday, duty and excises and VAT at that time, all on the basis that we recognized that we needed to have a greater penetration of electric vehicles and alternative fuel vehicles, hybrids as well in the various forms into the island's vehicle mix. At that time, we were even making a greater call for there to be established a sustainable energy fiscal strategy working group because we did recognize that although there would have been some revenue shortfall for government, we were quite satisfied that the imposition of those measures then under some careful fiscal analysis would have seen that government's reduction in revenue may have been compensated in terms of fuel savings and possibly increased consumption of electricity as the electric vehicle uptake is taken. So we're right on the cusp now with this 24-month holiday to do a lot of that analysis because the reality is that as much as we want to green, we also know that there are fiscal realities that we must adhere to in terms of government's revenue. So this is definitely a welcome move. And I think with the high oil prices right now, a lot of persons are really open to the idea of investing in alternative fuel vehicles, electrics and hybrids, because there's more variety on the market locally and even internationally if you want to import different options. And we see this definitely as a positive.
Well, we will speak to the homeowners side first, soon. But I want to bring in Simon here to talk about, he's been preaching this for years to me as well. I was never a fan of an electric vehicle. I thought they were too quiet. I just thought they were kind of not as good looking as the gasoline-powered vehicles. But that has changed over the years, and we see so much of your vehicles, Megapower's vehicles, on our roads now. What was your feeling when you heard the news coming from the Prime Minister on these changes in the renewable energy sector, especially the electric vehicle market?
Thank you, Shane. But as Aidan said, this is something we've been lobbying for really since the start of our company in 2013. For there to be a rapid uptake of electric vehicles or the transition from the internal combustion engine to electric, there has to be the right fiscal incentives in place. I believe we've come a long way towards that now. The cost of an electric car has dropped around $18,000 to $20,000 by removing the excise tax and the VAT, which now makes it a lot more affordable. Since 2013 to date, Megapower's managed to put about 1,000 electric cars on the road. And when I was listening to the announcement in Mia Motley's budget, the first thing I did was pick up the phone to our suppliers and say, scrap that 200 vehicles that we needed for the end of the year and double or triple that. So we're now just waiting for the factories to wake up and start supplying us with the double or triple the amount of cars that we predicted for the year. As for next year, I think the 2,500 cars a year, new cars that Barbados imports, will probably double. So I think we'll be seeing around 5,000 cars in 2023 coming in, and I'd suggest 70 to 80% of those will now be electric. There's been massive pent-up demand waiting for the price to be right. You can now electric cars are better value than the internal combustion engine, not only on the purchase price, they're now cheaper like for like, but they're also a fraction of the cost to run, about 25% of the cost to refuel an electric car with electric compared to putting gas or diesel in the same size vehicle. So yeah, we're very excited. We've done a lot of work in planning for the necessary charging network. So with our contacts in Barbados Light and Power Enterprise Growth Funds, we're again planning what chargers, electric vehicle chargers, need to be deployed, where and when. So we can touch on that later on the program.
Lovely. That $20,000 savings, Simon, what would that put the price for the average electric vehicle at now?
But that's a good question. The best-selling car in Barbados happens to be electric, and it's the MG, Morris Garage's ZS EV. So it's a small to mid-size SUV. So that's retailing, or it used to retail around 100,000, and there's $110,000 and $120,000 models. So there's 3 models in total. Those will now be retailing at $83,000 to $98,000, depending on the battery size and the trim level. So, but where it gets really exciting, towards the end of the year, we're launching a smaller MG model, the MG4, which we're expecting to come in at around the $60,000 mark. So that puts it, squarely at the Suzuki Swift market, and that's on 2023. We'll have a very competitively priced small vehicle, small to medium SUV, be the MG ZS, which we see on the road at the moment. As I said, the best-selling car in Barbados right now. And then beginning of next year, we're really hoping that MG SEAC will be releasing in right-hand drive the pickup truck. So I think with those 3 offerings, we've got most of the market covered. The last car that we represent is the Jaguar I-Pace. That's a very high-end car. There's still a market for high-end taxis and high-end larger SUVs, powerful SUVs, and that's also something that we've got the ability to import, and we do so readily and maintain.
Lovely. And speaking about maintenance, that's where some of the jobs will be coming, and we know a lot of those students will be passing through the SJPI, trying to get their certificates, their degrees, so that they can ply their trade in the renewable energy sector, whether in the vehicle market or on the household side of things. Mr. Drakes, what's happening at the SJPI, and what does this news from the Prime Minister mentioned in the budget do for the sector in terms of training and getting people ready? Are you seeing the interest aligning with that as well?
Good night, Shane, and good night to Barbados. Yes, we have seen and we have also reacted. What we have done is that we have modernized and transformed what used to be called our autotronics lab. So we have now moved it up, and that was modernized and transformed about 3 months ago. And it's now a hybrid and electric motor vehicle work lab. What we have seen already, even from the budget last week, is students who have completed their studies 5 years ago are saying that they want to come back and do the aspect of the electric vehicle training. So we also have to cater to not only the new ones that want to get into the training, but also those who would have completed their training about 5 years ago. So that's one of the food for thoughts that we have considered even from last week's exciting budget by the Honorable Prime Minister, Mayor Moore. And what we have seen is that our intake in the evening has increased because we do have some aspects of the main program that we offer in the evening, sessions 5 to 7 twice a week, where we do electric vehicle maintenance fundamentals and hybrid electric vehicle maintenance technology. And so those are aspects of the training that we have been doing at the SJPI within the last 2 to 3 years. We have also trained out the transport board technicians when the first fleet of buses arrived in Barbados a few years ago as well. So
and
that's
Megapower,
part of what we've seen.
good work. And we know that Megapower is also responsible for managing those electric buses coming into Barbados as well. There's so much to talk about when we're going into this renewable energy sector, and we'll get back to a lot of it in a few moments. Remember those numbers to call for you viewers with questions: 228-5562 or 228-5563. So you can get close to the phone lines, get your questions ready, and we'll be back in just a few moments with more as we speak about renewable energy and the budget incentives. It's all about the opportunities in the renewable energy sector as we focus on those budget incentives, those proposals announced by the Prime Minister Mia Motley recently in her budget presentation. And since then, there's been a real buzz surrounding the sector. So many people want to get involved. We heard about last week the level of investment already planned, some $135 million for that huge, massive renewable farm, that's photovoltaic farm, which will be set up in St. Philip. That will be happening over the next few years, providing hundreds of jobs, and we expect to see more projects rolled out in the weeks and months ahead. We've been focusing on a lot to do with the electric vehicles so far, but Aidan, I want to speak about what's happening at the household level, because you look squarely at some of those proposals coming out in the budget as well. This one talking about these generators that the taxes will be removed from so that they are more readily accessible and affordable for Barbadians. What else is happening in terms of that thrust for homeowners on the renewable energy end?
Well, definitely, Shane, the simplified registration process or installation process for householders is significant. What we have seen over the last 24 months is a significant upsurge in persons seeking to have renewable energy systems, and the licensing process, the same admin staff at the Ministry of Energy were pretty much overwhelmed with the number of applications. So with a simplified process where you have systems between 2.5 kilowatts and 10 kilowatts now pretty much getting an exemption, where there will just be some requirements, more than likely just to ensure that you have an approved design by Government Electrical Engineering Department with the single line diagram pretty much setting out the dimensions of the system. And I think once you have that, it's almost going to be an automatic approval for systems under 10 kilowatts. What that's going to do is really make the systems a lot more accessible to householders in terms of the turnaround time in having financing secured. And we're really talking for a 10 kilowatt system, a 2.5 to 10 kilowatt system, for systems that can cost the average consumer maybe between $8,000 to maybe $25,000, depending on the parameters of your home. This is really significant, Shane, because a 2.5 kilowatt system really produces enough electricity to power the average Barbadian household, close to 50,000 homes with all their daily energy needs. So this is something that we in BREA had been anticipating and spurring governments on to look at, because we really wanted to see photovoltaic systems being as simple to install on your home as changing a ceiling fan. The average 2.5 kilowatt system is about 8 to 10 panels. If you're dealing with the larger size panels of rated capacity of about 500 kilowatts. And this is really a day, 2 days work in terms of some installations for some smaller homes. So we really want to see the spur in job activity and creation for small electricians, roofers, really benefiting from this upsurge, because we know that several financial houses are really eager to try and translate into facilitating financing for Barbadians.
That's what I was going to get at, Aidan. Sorry to cut in here, but are the financial institutions on board now? Because we know that BREA has been working with them to try to formulate some kind of plan which would make it, as I said earlier, more affordable for homeowners to really get involved and to have the benefits of having this photovoltaic system tied to their home, reducing their energy bill. Are the financial institutions fully on board now?
Very much so. BREA has been doing some significant work with financial and insurance industry for about the last 6 or 7 years. And I mean, they have the resources and they've really responded. There are a suite of investment packages now specifically geared towards renewable energy investment. The one thing I would want to add, Shane, what we need to see to appeal to the larger penetration, particularly at the low end of the residential scale, is that the insurance companies now seek to offer some sort of insurance policies that can accommodate some of these homeowners, because there's still a requirement for you to have third-party liability insurance. And unfortunately, we have a culture of underinsurance with respect to homeowners, particularly at the chattel house level. And we would really like to see now to come implement these initiatives in terms of a simplified installation process, some matching of insurance products that are affordable for the lower income segments of the society of the homeowners, so that they can at least satisfy the full requirements for installation of photovoltaic systems on their home. As it relates to the generators, this is really a resiliency initiative. And although it's not 100% a greening initiative, it really reflects some of the climate vulnerability that we experience here as an island in the hurricane belt. And what it really means is that a lot of those experiences we would have had in the last 2 years with respect to the freak storm, Hurricane Elsa, this reduction is really timely because it affords the average householder the opportunity to invest in some form of independent power generation, albeit not necessarily renewable, to really facilitate the powering of their homes if there's any natural disaster that results in an outage. So this is also a significant measure that was introduced.
Simon, as far as the electric vehicles go, a big question has been asked because you heard Ian speaking about having his students trained in electrical engineering to cater to fixing the vehicles. Talk about the level of maintenance needed normally on an electric vehicle, because I would believe, I'm no expert, you are the expert, but I would believe that the maintenance is, well, electric vehicles are pretty low maintenance. It's really only the battery you have to worry about. Anything else is basically mechanical in terms of the shocks or those suspension parts. But I know you would be in a better position to educate our viewers and myself.
Thanks, Shane. First of all, that says open that we have a electric-only garage where we employ 7 mechanics, and they're primarily based in Gibbons, Christchurch, and a couple of mechanics at Mangrove, where we look after the maintenance requirements for the 49 BYD electric buses for the transport board. So the maintenance requirement is a lot simpler than the internal combustion engine. I can honestly say the 1,000 cars that we've been maintaining since 2013, we haven't had one motor failure. So not even one motor has needed maintenance, and you couldn't say that with any combustion engine. So they're super reliable. Even things like the gearbox is not really a gearbox, it's called a torque converter. Again, we've had probably 3 or 4 failures ever, and they're being repairable in country very simply. So yes, you have tires, you have suspension, you've got your bearings, software updates, occasional electrical chargers that need and inverters on board on the cars that need updating or replacing. But really, the maintenance requirement is very simple. We pull the cars in every 9 or 10,000 kilometers, or 6 months, whichever comes first, and that's depending if it's a Nissan, say Leaf, or more recently the MG, which has got a slightly longer service interval, recommended service interval, 10,000 kilometers. If you think about what goes wrong on a combustion car, like the exhaust pipes, like the gearboxes, like the 700 or so moving parts in the engine, we just don't have any of those. We've got a very basic cooling system. So yeah, we won't need as many mechanics moving forward. But I suppose maybe Aidan can find jobs for them in the renewable energy sectors. But we do take on and retain a very highly skilled workshop. Our workshop is headed up by a gentleman called Philip Best. He's been with us pretty much from day one, and his role is to take on, recruit, and find, I suppose, the best of the younger technicians and work as a role model. And he's definitely our senior technician. We couldn't be without him.
Well, there's still a lot more to look at as we talk about that electric vehicle market, and there's more to talk about in the other components of the renewable energy sector. We'll take a pause here and be back in a few moments. We're discussing the budget incentives in the renewable energy sector as we look at what's ahead, what's the future looking like, and it's looking really bright. We do have a caller on the line. Caller, good night. Welcome to the People's Business. What's your question?
Good night. I'm wondering if, it wasn't clear to me, but is the hybrid vehicle included in the budget proposal, or that was excluded?
Aidan, was the hybrid vehicle I think that would fall under the alternately fueled vehicle category, though they are using some fossil fuel, some elements of fossil fuel.
Yeah, that was my understanding from the budgetary proposals, that hybrid vehicles are included as well.
Okay. Well, I mean, we will try to get some clarity on that in the weeks ahead, because we know that this conversation will continue as people take advantage of the renewable energy sector and those incentives involved. Simon, I want to come back to you before I speak to Ian about getting those students ready for the jobs. Some of the things that can go wrong with the electric vehicle after a little while, one of them, a major one, I think, is the battery. And some people, in conversations with them, we have been talking about the cost of replacement, or do you even replace it? When the battery goes bad, do you look for a new vehicle? What happens there?
Okay. We recognised, on the early electric cars, the battery was the weak link. In the Caribbean, we need electric vehicles with thermal management systems. A few things to grade batteries. One of them is calendar aging, so how old is the battery? The other is the heat. How many charge cycles, how many times has the battery been charged and discharged? And if you're charging the battery when it doesn't need to be charged, so the battery's already at a very high state of charge, so say it's at 90%, then you shouldn't really plug that battery in. And also, if the battery is flat, you need to be charging that battery and not leaving it flat. So there's a whole lot of stuff that you can do to increase the life of a battery. What we've been doing more recently with the Nissan ENV200 vans, the BMW i3 electrics, the Jaguar electrics, and most recently the MG electric cars. They've all been selected because they have thermal management systems, which effectively means you're running the car's cooling system, the air conditioning circuit, for want of a better term, to keep that battery under 40 degrees Celsius, which prevents it from, degrading at a fast rate. So with thermal management, batteries will lose about 2.5% of their capacity per year. Without thermal management, it's closer to 5 or 6% of their capacity per year. So what we've now done is we're guaranteeing the batteries on the MGs to be, after a 7-year period, to have 70% at least of their original capacity.
Wow.
So the original capacity, well, the new cars are doing up to 600 kilometers on one charge. So the issue of losing 30% over the 7 years is really not that much of an issue. But yeah, they do come with a large manufacturer's warranty. If in the event, and we do have this with some of the early Nissan electric cars, Nissan Leaf that we launched with, we set up a battery lab in Gibbons, Christchurch, where we basically open up the battery, we find which of the modules have failed, and we'll be replacing, or we do replace those. When the battery comes to its eventual end life, the same battery lab that we've set up is equipped, and we have been doing this on making power walls, just like a Tesla Powerwall, but we actually make our own version and run offices and homes with that. So we also use the old batteries when they're no good for electric cars anymore to power things like golf carts. So Durance Golf, or Barbados Golf Club, Durance, Apes Hill, Royal Westmorlands are running on old Nissan Leaf batteries that we've either sold or rented to those establishments. So there is an afterlife. A lithium-ion battery will last about 20 years, but maybe 10 or 12 years into that time, they'll be no longer suitable for an electric car, at which point you'll be putting a new battery in. The
So
price,
you don't really
that's always
purchase
variable.
batteries as such then? That's what I'm getting from you. You don't really
Well,
have to purchase a battery for your electric vehicle. Once you buy it, you have at least 7 years,
uh, yeah,
use.
so you've got a guaranteed 7 years use at 70% of its original capacity.
Oh.
We believe that the MG battery is going to be running 10 to 14 years. They've been on the island for about 2.5 years now, and we're showing very, very negligible signs of degradation. So that's all looking good. In the event that they do need replacing the first 7 years, that's at Megapower, and we'll pass on that cost to the supplier, MG. After the 7 years, the current price is $8,000 for a new battery pack. But in our experience,
okay.
yeah, $8,000 is our purchase price. But in our experience with Nissan, you don't replace the battery with the same battery. You replace the battery with something twice as large and twice as strong. So you actually give it a genuine upgrade. So our old 24 kilowatt batteries, that's the capacity that the amount of electricity you can store in the battery, has now jumped to 40. So we do a straight upgrade program on those that do need replacing.
Okay, we have another caller on the line. Good night. Welcome to the People's Business. What's your question?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'd like to know how long does these vehicles stay charged? How long?
Okay, I think the question is from our caller. How long does the charge stay on these vehicles? Once you have them at around 100% in the 90%, how many miles can you get and how long does it stay charged? How many kilometers? We're in Barbados, so we're dealing with the metric system. How many kilometers do we get? And I guess it depends on the car too.
Yeah, I can answer that question. The smallest range you'd expect to have a new electric vehicle now would be 250 kilometers from one charge, and that would run up to around 600 kilometers on the bigger battery models. So 250, 300 kilometers on the low end, and that, bearing in mind the average driving in Barbados per day, the average kilometers driven by the average punter is 42 kilometers. So when you're achieving 250 kilometers, for most people, that's a week's worth of driving. We do recognize basically organizations like the Royal Barbados Police Force, the rental car market, some delivery companies, some taxis do need a larger range than that, so they can't always charge that regularly. For example, the police have 3 8-hour shifts, so we need to have a larger range to cover their requirements. Hence why we need a car that can do around 600 kilometers on one charge. I think the caller was asking a slightly different question as well. And
well, let's take a break first, Simon, and
Yep.
you mull on that question. We'll take a quick break and be back to talk about the renewable energy sector and all of the benefits for you, the consumer. Our discussion tonight focusing on renewable energy, and we have another caller on the line to welcome us back to the program. Caller, good night. Welcome to the People's Business. What's your question for the panel?
My question is on the solar panel on the rooftops. How do we know how many solar panels are required for the rooftop? And let me make an argument. A rooftop, say, of 2,000 square feet or 2,400 square feet, whatever, how many solar panels are required? And then the energy from the solar panel, which obviously goes to the grid, how do I make my money back for the cost of the installation of the solar panels at full cost? How does that work? The government pays me back, or the energy which I sell to the grid, is that what I'm getting back as an incentive on a monthly basis?
Aidan?
So,
Hello?
in terms of
Yeah, Aidan will answer your question here now.
Yeah. So in terms of the average roof space, basically you can get the equivalent to maybe 10 kilowatts per 1,000 square feet. So a 2,000 square foot roof can probably give you maybe a 20 kilowatt system on average. And it's all a feature of the rated capacity of the panels you use. We have been seeing a lot of larger panels being used now of a 500 kilowatt rating. In terms of how you're going to make your money back, there are currently 2 feed-in tariff programs in place. For the residential customer, the feed-in tariff program, which would have been the successor to the Renewable Energy Rider pilot program that Barbados Light and Power would have commenced back in 2010, offers a range of rates for different size systems. Of significance, however, there are different regulatory constructs in terms of how you're compensated, which would have an impact in terms of how much revenue you're able to return and on what basis you're going to receive that revenue. So for instance, there is a system called a sale of excess. This applies for photovoltaic systems of 3 kilowatts and less. So the 2.5 installation category that the Prime Minister announced during the budget would benefit from a different regulatory rate in terms of how they're compensated. Anything above 3 kilowatts would be compensated based on a sale of excess. That is where you purchase all your power from the Barbados Light and Power Company at the standard electricity rates, and you're given the relevant fixed tariff rate for which you'll be compensated for any power that you produce from your photovoltaic system. That framework does not apply for systems under 3 kilowatts. It's what we call almost something similar to net metering, where you are compensated directly for the volume of power that you produce, and that is netted off directly at one standard rate against the power that you consume in your home. So that's a bit of a technical question, but this is something that you can reach out to the Barbados Renewable Energy Association for, where you can get a bit more clarity in terms of what are the different tariff structures, what are the different interconnection mediums, and how they would affect how you would be able to be compensated for your investment. So this is a useful question in terms of adding a bit more clarity as to how the parameters of the feed-in tariff framework currently operates.
And also how you can go about really just setting up your renewable energy system to help power your home. I know Bria would help with that as well. Ian, with all of the renewable energy solar photovoltaic systems expected to be established over the next 7 years as we go to 100% renewables, we're imagining, and Aidan mentioned it last week, some 200 plus jobs will be created around the HDF Caribbean site in St. Philip, where they're setting up that massive solar farm. And there will be other similar projects going forward. Are we getting enough people trained at the SJPI to take that step into the installation process, into other connected or interconnected jobs that are tied to the renewable energy sector?
Thank you for that question, Shane. I wouldn't answer the question in the direct, say yes or no. We are working on that. What I will say to you is that we have been churning out persons, PV installers and roofer fitters. What we have also done is that we have from MOUs with some of the government and private sector in terms of EMERA and the BNOCL, and we have also had a MOU with the BIMAP where we are able to send our students on job attachment. So they're able to get that authentic real world experience even before they finish the SJPI. What we have been doing is we have been offering the program, submerging it in a full-time electrical installation program, and then we have it in our standalone on evenings, our OFL, which is the Open and Flexible Learning Center, distance and continuing education. And similar to what we do with the electric vehicles, we have been training up persons on average of about 70 persons per year out of the evening section. So we are getting there, but we also have other collaboration going on with the BCC as well, where we are really looking to up the game based on what was said in the budgetary proposal. And so we are working with that tirelessly because we do see the need to react in a positive way, as you alluded to, Shane, for the sector that we see, as Aidan has alluded to, will explode as well. So we are really preparing and getting our youth involved, and we are seeing that. We also working with some of the ministries, the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment, and we bring in their young persons under the Next Step Training Initiative. So all of those are the factors that we're using to get those persons up on stream for this explosion that is about to happen.
Well, we'll wait and watch and hope for the best, because we do want to see the renewable energy sector is expected to be that next frontier in terms of creating jobs right across the board for hundreds, if not thousands, of Barbadians. We do have another caller on the line. Welcome to the People's Business. Good night. What's your question?
Hi, good night. I have two questions. The first one is, what about a person that want to go off-grid? When you say off-grid, like, have an off-grid inverter. Are there any incentives for that person? And the second question is, if you are a mechanic already and you want to be trained in the electrical side of the vehicle, are there any benefits for that person to enter the SJPP to be trained in that area? Those are my two questions.
Thank you so much, caller, for your questions. Aidan, you can probably take the first one in terms of making your home into a microcosm, its own unit, you powering your home yourself, coming off grid. What are the possibilities for that, and how expensive would that be?
Well, it's very much possible, and there are quite a few persons who have been doing that for some time. In terms of incentives, way back in 2013, there were a suite of incentives that were applied to renewable and photovoltaic equipment and the components required to establish them. So that is definitely something possible that a homeowner can explore. As it relates to the whole question of the cost of doing that, it's obviously going to cost you a bit more, because besides the photovoltaic generating system, you also have to invest in batteries. And there are different options that persons have been exercising. Lead acid batteries have been one of the preferred choices, but now there are newer lithium ion battery systems that a person can install. And some of those systems actually offer the ability for you to store power from the grid in addition to your own photovoltaic panels on your roof. And there's currently no legal measure in place to prevent a homeowner from doing that. So this is definitely an option that persons can explore. And again, you can always contact the Barbados Renewable Energy Association if you need any technical advice or to see any potential installers who can assist you with the design and installation of such a battery system.
Well, we have to take a quick break here. There's another side to that question, which I know you, Ian, will get to, but let's take that question, or get the answer to that question, after this break, as we speak about renewable energy, the budget incentives. let's get into some of those final comments right here on the People's Business as we speak about renewable energy and those budget incentives. And those incentives are real for anyone getting involved at the household level, or if you're thinking about buying an electric vehicle, over the next 2 years will definitely be the time. Ian, that question about those mechanics who are already in the field, converting to electrical engineers or electrical engineer mechanics. Have you been seeing a lot of that? What are the possibilities? Is it something difficult? If you're a mechanic, does it shorten the time of study that you have to spend at the SJPI? What can you tell us?
Most certainly, we believe that it will shorten the time. As I said, because of the inquiry last week, my team, in terms of the registrar, the curriculum development officer, are going to start looking at where we can have a standalone section for those persons, because we go right up to what we call the advanced diploma in the mechanical motor vehicle technology. And so we don't see the need to bring them back for 3 years, because they do have the foundation. And so we're going to have prerequisites where they can come in having that foundation of being mechanically inclined and also publicly qualified. And we're going to offer that program where they can do those short courses. So yes, we are going to be considering that very shortly. In addition, what we have been doing is what is called PLAR, which is prior learning and recognition, where some persons have been mechanic for over 20 years and have not been certified, and we are able to do the gap analysis and see where you may have some gaps and fill those gaps through training, and then have you certified with the SJPI certificate as well. So we're going to cater to those experienced mechanics, those not so experienced mechanics, as I said, those who said finished 5 years ago. What we have also done is, in our current program, it's a pathway now where our new students, when they get into the advanced diploma, this final year, you have an option of doing hybrid and electrics, or you can go to the diesel and gasoline at this time. We are also looking at that and saying that we may not have that continue as an elective, but make it compulsory, especially after last week's discussion and proposal of making it compulsory to really have the knowledge of the hybrid and also the electrics. So those are some of the factors that we're looking at for training. And I am saying that that will be a turnaround time within another month or two, that we would look to put that to the public, to contact the Samuel Jackson Prescott Institute of Technology and find out where you can fit in to our programs as we bring you in for those specialized courses. And let me say here as well, I work closely with Megapower in terms of our partnership, just in case you don't know, Shane, because we do rely on them to sometimes give us some expert training to our instructors. So that there is a collaborative effort that has been going on. About 2 years ago, we started that relationship. And so we have been building on that, and we will continue to build on that as well, because we want to work with the car dealers in a big way also across Barbados.
Well, teamwork makes the dream work, and I'm telling you, so many people will be getting involved in this sector, and it will mean that they will be making their fair share in terms of earnings on their revenue side. So it's a win-win for all involved. Simon, let me come to you. What does the future really hold for Barbados as far as the renewable energy vehicle market is concerned? You mentioned bringing in all of those vehicles in the coming years. One thing I think that we haven't touched on is the installation of the charging ports at your home. Are most homes readily equipped for that conversion when you bring home your renewable, your electric vehicle? Are people's homes ready for those installations?
Yep, thanks, Shane. I think first of all, by 2030 as a country, we've pledged that we're going to be carbon neutral, and all of our electricity generated from renewable energy. And the electric car actually gives the country on electric buses the ability to do that. What an electric car is effectively a big battery on wheels. And the latest cars that we have what's called like bidirectional power delivery or bidirectional charging. So in the event of a power outage, we can simply switch. I've shown in many customers this very recently. Switch a switch on the car, and you can actually use the battery to power your home. In the event that the grid is failing, we can actually pull power from all the buses and certain types of electric cars to keep the grid running. We're working very, very closely with the Barbados Light and Power Company now to work out how the smart chargers are going to be deployed in people's homes moving forward, who owns those chargers and how they deliver power to those cars. There's no point everyone coming home from work at 5 or 6 o'clock and plugging their car in right when the grid is needing all the power to run air conditioning units for homes, for the tourism sector, the ovens go on and everything else. So by having smart chargers, we can work out when we've got the greenest power on the grid or the cheapest electricity and deliver that to the cars when nobody else is needing to consume power, when industry is slowed down, when the rooms are already cool, when people have finished cooking their meals. So yeah, the homes are primarily ready, and the electric cars are going to give a lot of stability to the grid moving forward, especially as we put more and more renewables onto that grid to hit our 2030 goal of 100% power generation from renewable energy.
And that's what Aidan wants to hear. Aidan, in this final 60 seconds or so, what will BREEA be working on in the coming months to get more people signed on and in tune to the renewable energy sector? Very quickly, if you can.
Shane, a lot of what Simon just referred to, he was just speaking to vehicle-to-grid infrastructure, and a lot of this speaks to a lot of the technical work that BREEA is working with government and the various regulatory agencies on. What I can report for Simon is that a vehicle-to-grid pilot, along with several other technical pilots to integrate more renewables onto the grid, is taking place, because we need to really transition how we consume power across the 24-hour basis. On the job fronts, BREEA is pushing for there to be increased training based on the interest in projects to be developed. We estimate we're going to need close to 2,000 to 2,500 combination of electrical contractors and installers for the photovoltaic systems. We need greater investment in storage. The Prime Minister spoke to this as one of her general policy objectives going forward. There are some plans for some partnerships on that end. And of course, as we invest more in renewable energy, we in BREEA often say lower prices are not necessarily the end game, but greater price stability for electricity costs. But that is where the local ownership comes in. Because even if costs for electricity don't fall, if ownership is spread across a wider base or level locally, it is more economic returns and more benefit towards the economy. So we'll be speaking a lot more on this publicly in the upcoming months, because BREEA just participated in an implementation plan for the integrated resource and resiliency planning exercise, which is pretty much looking at the procurement strategy going forward to 2030.
It's all about those incentives, and that's what people like to hear. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for sharing your expertise and, of course, what the budget means for the average Barbadian going forward in the renewable energy industry. And we know that there will be many more discussions to be had. Again, thank you. And thank you, viewers, for watching us here on The People's Business. Thank you for your questions, your calls, and, of course, thank you for spending your time with us. I'm Shane Seeley. Good night.